All right, Emil, where are we at today?
Oh, yeah, this is known as the King Community, and that's got a good name. See, not that there were kings living here, but they did all right after a while. Yeah, this church, we're in the cemetery here, the King Cemetery, and the church was founded and built in 1912. So that's a few years ago, a little before I was born, not much. And I was baptized up here, and I was confirmed. And the minister that confirmed me was Reverend Hans von Gemmingen. He was a German. Yeah, he was tough. Oh boy, we feared him, but he meant well. So, but the church has since been sold and moved away, and the congregation here in '56, I think it was, we moved to the Grace Lutheran Church in Lair. And that's where I still go to church. Now, of course, my wife is buried up here. We were married in '45, and well, let's see, 4 months before our 50th wedding anniversary, she passed away. So I've been a bachelor ever since. But life has been pretty good to me. I'm not complaining. See
Where was the church that you went to when you grew up?
the church.
Where did it sit?
Oh, I can't understand you.
Where did the church sit?
Oh, yeah, right behind me, up the hill here. Yeah, the hill behind me. That's where the church was. It wasn't a big church. Well, they bought a bell for it, and then they decided the church wasn't sturdy enough to put that bell up. And that bell stayed over at the neighbor's junkyard, I think, for some 30 years. And then the church in Napoleon bought it. And when that church sold out, that was just a few years ago, I auctioned that bell back. I got it in my museum in the barn. It's a nice sounding bell. So at least I got some souvenir from the church. Well, the church, that had kerosene lamps, the type that were fastened on the side. They're a nice lamp, really. And we had one gasoline lantern in the middle, hung on the ceiling. It would hiss, when they were going. And I remember they used to put the Christmas tree with the candles, to light the candles. Always scared me. I always thought that thing would burn down one of these days when you do that. But see, the church, I think at that time, we may have had around 35 members at one time here. 35 families, I mean. So a whole lot more than we have now in town.
How important was religion when you were growing up?
Oh yeah, religion played a big part in our lives. Oh yes. We'd go to church every Sunday, and each one of us kids would get a penny to put in the offering plate. I remember Mother had a little jar on her dresser, and we'd go in there, each get a penny before we go to church. And, well, then we had to sit on a bench, no backrest. The kids up front. Seemed to me church was long anyway. But I guess when you're young, you can do those things. And another thing they used to do, they'd go to communion, and after they were through with communion, they'd drop a quarter into a plate as they left. And later on, they decided, better change that. Looks like we're paying for Christ to forgive our sins. So they didn't do that no more. But otherwise, I don't know how many kids we had. Oh, I'd have to guess here. I suppose there were about 30 young kids going to church here. Most of them have left. There's very few that went to this church that are still living out here. I think I'm one of the only ones, really. They own land here yet.
You mentioned the kids sat up front. Where did your parents sit?
Well, they sat, you know, in them days, it was segregated. The men sat on one side and the women on the other side. The men sat on the right side, women on the left, yeah. Yeah, we used to, some of the kids, you know, they'd get tired and they'd lay on the bench during the sermon, and either one of the parents would come up and straighten them out. That was embarrassing, but that's the way it went.
You said you were confirmed. Did you take classes at the church?
Yeah, we'd meet here during the summer months. We'd walk here. Some of them kids walked 3 miles. Yeah, we'd have classes like in, excuse me, in the afternoon. Always. I don't even remember how. I think it was either 2 months before we were confirmed. But that would go on for every year, though. I think when I was confirmed, there were only 4 of us in the class. And you'd sit up front, and of course, we had a gimmick going. If the minister would ask you a question, if you didn't know, we had our backs to the congregation, and if you didn't know the question, you put your finger. If you knew it, you put your finger up. If you didn't know it, you put it down, so you weren't embarrassed. The old German ministers, they were pretty sharp.
What types of things did you have to learn for confirmation?
Oh, you had to learn all the commandments, the articles, you know, and then all the questions we were asked. Like, I think I had to recite the 10 Commandments, if I remember right. And then somebody had 3 articles and so on down, yeah. And then, of course, you had your first communion at that time. Seems like a long time ago.
Did you learn your confirmation materials in German or English?
No, I was German. Yes, everything was German. If you could talk German, you had to recite it German.
And how about the church services themselves? Were they in English or German?
Yeah, they were in German, and then our minister would come out here once every 3 weeks, and we'd have church in the afternoon. He came out of Cullum, and the rest of the Sundays, one of the members would read the sermon. That was Dan Roth he was pretty good.
Did he read out of a book, or were the sermons prepared by the preacher for him?
No, he read out of a book, yeah. And then we had a man, old man Essick, they always called him. He played the organ. He was the oldest man here, and he was real good at the organ. I remember one time after the service, he got up and he said in German, you know, somebody is singing off key here. Everybody was a little shocked. I think it was one of the maids that was working at one of the neighbors here. I didn't know the difference. They sang off key. Yeah, he'd walk up here. He and his wife, they lived right over here. And then he'd walk up here before services and play the organ. He didn't like anyone else to play it either. We had a bunch of girls later on that did play the organ. Now we can't find enough organists to play, but then we had a surplus.
After church services, did your family have a big Sunday dinner?
Yeah, we went, we'd, well, when we had church in the forenoon, when the minister wasn't here, oh yeah, you always had noodle soup when you came home, of course. And that they put that on the stove before you went to church. And it was good. I still like noodle soup. We have it in a restaurant in Lair every Sunday. Still tastes good.
Would this just be your family, or would you have other guests come to your house?
No, well, when we had Mission Festival, which would be once a year, oh yeah, then you'd have a good turnout. Then most of the families had some visitors come down, yeah, to dinner. Oh, they'd have the minister down once in a while. Like in the wintertime, they'd get him, he'd come by train to Lair, and they'd bring him out here and he'd stay at one of the members overnight and church next day, and then he'd go back, they'd take him back on Monday again.
And what was Mission Fest?
Mission Fest. Oh, that was once a year where they took up an offering for missions. And that used to go over big in all churches, I think. No, it's not that big a thing anymore. Well, you have missions now the year round, so it's different.
Did your parents restrict anything because of religion?
Oh, yes. We weren't supposed to play cards, but we did play once in a while downstairs. And they frowned on dances and things like that, yeah. So I guess they were all that way, really. I don't know if it helped any or not. we still got into all kinds of trouble, so.
Were you able to question the religious teachings?
Well, I think, I don't think there was much of that. You know, you were sort of really afraid of your minister. We were. I was afraid to even ask him something. He was a stern guy, oh man. He used to have a saying in German, if you didn't know your lesson, should you get a funnel, he says, and pour it into your head or what? And, now I suppose teachers wouldn't dare do that, would they? Wouldn't dare say that.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add about religion?
No. I think a lot of our young people, though, do all right nowadays, around here anyway. They take an interest in religion, which is good. Now, if they'll take a greater interest in politics, maybe, that would help too. So, yeah, as a whole, I think the younger generation is doing fine. Sure, you got a few exceptions, but that's to be expected, I guess.
What was it like growing up on the plains?
Oh, that's a way different story than what you have nowadays. So, well, you know, everything was done by hand, for one thing. Very few people had any tractors, and when they did have a tractor, it's just used for threshing. So, yeah, it's everything was done by hand. That's why you didn't see farmers with big pot bellies. They used a fork or a shovel. You got plenty of exercise. And you grew up that way, you know, you started young. Boy, when you were old enough, they got you to pick weeds or something. Oh, yes. But it didn't do us any harm. I'm not sorry a bit.
What did you find enjoyable or beautiful about growing up out here on the plains?
Well, if you liked animals, you know, it was quite the deal with, like I remember we used to milk in the barn and we had some little pigs in there. And, you know, when you're milking, you can squirt, they take the teat and squirt at this hog, and they'd stand there and catch that milk. Oh, they were good at that. That was fun to watch, but of course we weren't supposed to do that. Yes, that was one of the things I remember well.
Was there anything that you found bleak or unpleasant about the plains?
Well, you know, you didn't get around much, so you really didn't know. You didn't have TV, you had radio, but I really didn't know any different, I guess. It didn't bother you much.
Can you describe what a typical winter was like for you?
Oh, it seems to me the winters then you had to have a 3-day blizzard, at least 2 of them a year. You don't have that no more, but we used to. Oh yeah, and now school, and then being you didn't have running water, you had we used to go down the well with a cart and put a cream can on, and then when we'd bring it in, of course you go down the snowbank and you'd spill it right in front of the house, and oh boy. So you went all over again, did the same thing again. Oh, those winters were, and then you didn't have shelter belts, you know, you had so much snow right in the yard. You were shoveling snow by hand. And then we went to school that way too, with a horse and a sled. We went later on with one horse and one sled. And well, we had a barn down school where you put your horses in. And then you had these blankets, it's a horse hide. They were heavy, but they were warm. We used to cover up with those. The horse usually knew where to go, so you didn't have to do much about that. Yeah, I'd like to see some of the kids live through that now. Oh boy.
What was a typical spring like for you?
In the spring, well, the springs were much earlier than we have now. I remember they were seeding in March. But then, of course, this was during the 30s, so it was dry. Yeah, I think our seasons were earlier. Maybe it's because of the horsepower you use, not tractors.
What was a typical summer like for you?
Oh, the summer, there I got to tell you about that. Summer, you know, we'd catch gophers in the summertime. And you get 2 cents, yeah, I think it was 2 cents a tail. And we'd tear off the tail, save them, and then you'd have to take them to the courthouse. Napoleon, I think the auditor's office. Well, anyway, Dad took them up, and there was some $4 we had. And we thought, sure, like me and my brother, we thought, sure, we'd get the money. And he says, oh, you kids will need new shoes when you go to school. You know, I can't give you the money. Well, we were disappointed, so we caught some more gopher tails, or more gophers. And then we had our brother take them up. And it was, I think we got some right around $3 the next time. And then we went and we bought a rifle from one of the neighbors, Lawrence Fundrick. It was a 22 single shot. And then, of course, we shot at everything there was. You could order the shells from Sears Roebuck. You got those for, I think, 15 cents a box. They were cheap. And that's how we kept going. But in the wintertime, we shot a lot of rabbits, and you'd catch weasel. You'd put a weasel in an envelope and send it to Sears Roebuck. And you'd get from 75 cents to 90 cents, depending on the size of the hide. But that part was interesting. See, we never got an allowance when we were growing up. You had to earn your money. So in the wintertime, it was easier. Rabbits were bringing 25 cents a piece. We used to shoot a lot of rabbits, even some of them illegally at night. They'd come in, you know, in the evening. When it starts getting dark, the rabbits would come in where you fed your cattle. So we'd lay on the haystack and wait for them. And we'd shoot some of the rabbits that way. Yeah, I enjoyed that. I'd always shoot first with the rifle. If I'd miss, then my brother would shoot him with a shotgun, you know, on the run. So we didn't miss too many that way.
Why did these companies pay you for these animals?
Oh, you mean the hide? Yeah, that for a weasel, like I said, 75 cents to 90 cents. But you just ship them, you know, in an envelope. Just put them in an envelope. Sears Roebuck bought a lot of that stuff. Then there were some Chicago companies too. You'd always get a price list from them. Skunk, that was a little different. Skunk was a smelly situation, but we did catch some skunks, badgers, even a mink now and then. Oh yeah. Geese.
Did you go hunting for any animals not to get their hides, but to just hunt for meat or for fun?
Oh yeah. There was a lot of pheasants later on, like in the late 30s. Yeah, every time I got the cows, if you wanted pheasant, we'd shoot a pheasant, bring it home. Yeah, well, we're getting them again. There's a lot of pheasants around again. Yeah.
What was a typical fall like for you?
Well, then there was always the threshing, and like my dad had a threshing machine, so we did quite a bit of threshing for the neighbors. So if you were old enough, like 15 or so, then you had to go, you'd load bundles and bring them up to the threshing machine or unload the grain. Oh yeah, it was hard work, but it seems like everybody helped out, they worked together, and it went. I'm glad they're over with though. I wouldn't want to go back to that. You wouldn't have the farmers the size they are now if they had to do that.
Could you describe for us what a typical threshing day entailed?
Oh yeah, you got up real early in the morning. And then they'd have breakfast, and then you'd go over to the barn and you'd feed your horses and harness them, and then take them to the water, hitch up your bundle teams and take off. And then you'd have lunch, I don't know, between 9:30, something like that. And then at dinner time, of course, you were home again, and the one you were back out again, doing the same thing all over. But there was a lot of extra work, like the women too, the cooks and all. They were a big crew. They get through the meal, then they had to fix lunch, and oh, we had some beer once in a while too, at lunchtime. I don't know, as a kid I didn't like beer. It changed a little when I got older, but.
What types of food would they cook for you?
Oh, yeah, let's see. They always had good meals. Now, you know, on the farm they did their own butchering, so you had you had a variety of beef, pork. Oh yeah, even dough foods. Dough foods were popular.
All right. Out of all those seasons we've just talked about, which one was your favorite season when you were growing up?
Oh, I think summer. I think it still is. Winter seems so long here, and it's not too much. Well, we did have skis. We'd you know, somebody would ride on a horse, and you'd hang on the rope and ski behind them. Homemade skis. Excuse me. Homemade skis at that. Yeah. Then we got a sled. In 1939, I had a brother who was in the service up at Fort Lincoln, and he gave us a sled for Christmas. It was a long sled. We had the biggest sled in the neighborhood. And gee, we'd go down the hills with that, wherever there was snow. I remember that well. I still got the sled. See, I took good care of my toys.
Why was summer your favorite season when you were growing up?
Why? Well, I think you had something to do that you enjoyed, really, and you weren't always told, do this, do that. As you grew up on the farm, you were always told what to do. And then if you didn't do it right, you did it over, but you never got thanked. I don't, in them days, I never got a thank you for doing anything, I don't believe. I don't think they did that. Or give you a hug or something like they do nowadays. I guess the parents believed if you love one too much, you'll lose them or something. So, but I don't know, you got used to that, I guess.
You mentioned not having any shelter belts when you were growing up. Were there very many trees in the area when you grew up?
Trees? Oh, no, very few trees. Every farm had a few, a few cottonwood and some sand cherries, choke cherries. Yeah, well, they canned everything in them days, so there were no freezers. Yeah, I liked like rhubarb wine they even made. That I liked.
Is there anything else about growing up on the plains that you'd like to add?
I remember getting a spanking one time for something I didn't do. You know, it was on a Sunday morning, and the two brothers older than me, they were cleaning the barn. And we had a cow, left the milk house out. She went out a ways off and had a calf. And then my dad fell back in. And then when I was going to do that, my older brother said, don't bother, we'll get her in when we unload the manure, we'll bring her back in. Well, then I went in the house. Here, Dad comes storming in the house, and he had a razor strap hanging in there. Grabbed it, and he gave me a spanking. You always got a spanking on your back. You did hang on to one hand, you'd go around the circle. And then after he got through giving me a spanking, the boys are in there washing, and they said they told him that they told me not to get her, because they'd get the animal back. But he didn't apologize. They didn't do that in them days. Maybe I didn't get a hard spanking next time because I had one coming or didn't have it coming.
All right, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I don't think I got anything to add.
Okay, Emil, where are we at right now?
Oh, we're right at the house where I was born in about 84 years ago. Well, it's done a little remodeling work on it, but it's still the same house. It used to be close to the lake, and they moved it up here. Now, I don't remember when they moved it up, but I think it was built in 1917 or 16, something like that. So it's old.
Who originally built the house?
Oh, a Bogner. He used to live in Lair. He also bootlegged whiskey at that time. They tell me this. And I think this is the second house he ever built as a carpenter, so there were mistakes in it.
Okay. Could you describe the inside of the house a little bit for us?
Oh yeah, it has a basement and upstairs, and well, let's see, I used to sleep upstairs. I had to sleep with my older brother, and I didn't like that at first. I still remember when he carried me up there, and I had to get in bed with him, but I got used to it after a while. I remember when my youngest sister was born. That was in 25. I came downstairs in the morning, it had time to get up, and here there was a lady in the had a wash tub there. She was washing, and then after she asked me if I can dress myself, and I just looked at her. I don't think I said anything. I turned around and went back to bed. Later on, I found out my mother had given birth to a little girl, and that was one of the midwives here, one of the neighbors, Mrs. Herberly. She came down and delivered the baby. So that was the last one in our family. There was 9 in our family. I was number 7. But yeah, we slept, what, 3 in one bed as kids. And then we had 4 beds upstairs. And of course, my folks slept downstairs. Oh yeah, there was no running water. We got running water here in 1940. And we put that in ourselves. That's when we had indoor plumbing then. That was a great relief. anyhow, shower time and so.
Where did you go to the bathroom before? Indoor plumbing.
Oh, we had an outhouse. Oh, yes. That was quite popular in them days. Everybody had an outhouse. That was a bad thing when you had to go to the bathroom at night. Especially when you were little and you were scared. You didn't want to go out in the dark. But then it didn't take you long then to go to the bathroom.
Could you describe your house a little bit for us?
Outhouse? Oh, it's just a one-story one. They have two-story outhouses. This is a one-story. Yeah, let's see. I think it was a little east of the house here. I don't know what happened to that. I think we must have destroyed it in the 40s.
Okay. How was the house heated?
Oh yeah, they had like downstairs they had a cook stove, and then upstairs you had it was a coal or wood stove. That thing would puff sometimes and blow the pipes off, and the smoke would come out. It wasn't a very good stove, I didn't think. It was big, it was huge, it was as high as I am. Yeah, I didn't like that stove. I remember one time we were here alone, and our folks went visiting in South Dakota, and that stove blew the pipes off and back, and then the smoke started coming in the house. And everybody, well, my two sisters, they all got sick, and my brother, and I was sleeping close to the wall. They tell me that's why I didn't get sick. And yeah, they were all sick for a while. I guess that could have been the end of us that time. But as fate has it, we were lucky, I guess.
You mentioned there were some rooms upstairs.
Yeah, there was 4 rooms upstairs. One room, our minister used to, when he came out here, he used to have one of those upstairs. Yeah.
How did you keep those rooms heated?
Oh, there was a register up there, so the heat would come up from the ceiling from that main stove downstairs.
Where would your mother do the washing in the house?
Oh, that was always Mondays. That was down basement, yeah. Later on, we had a little stationary motor down there, and you'd start that up with a belt and line up the washing machine. They'd wash. One of those with the agitator was on top. Yeah, on top of the machine, and the cover. Old wooden tub washing machine. A Dexter, I believe it was. Yeah, that was quite a chore. Usually Mondays they washed.
And where would you get the water from?
Oh yeah, the well was about what, 200 feet from the house, and we'd walk down there with a little wagon and put a 10-gallon cream can on it, fill it up with water, and bring it up here, pour it over into pails, take it downstairs, spill it once in a while, and oh yeah, good old days. At least it brings back some good memories when you think about it.
Did your mother make her own soap to do laundry?
Yes, yeah, that's right. Their own soap. They always smelled a little like lye. They only used that on our everyday clothes. Then they had, I think it was P&G, which also was a bar, and they'd cut that up and put that in the washing machine. Yeah.
Do you remember how your mother made her soap?
Yeah, I think when they butchered, they saved the lard some way. I don't remember what they added. I think later on some of them added some perfume to get that smell, lye smell off. That was quite a chore, making your own soap. No, there was no Camay in them days, or Lux, I guess.
And what about taking baths?
Oh yeah, well, we had when my brother was in the service, that was in '39. mailed a big rubber bathtub. It was made of rubber. You could unfold it, and oh, that was a big deal. We could take baths in there. But you know, you had to use the same water. So all the girls were always first, you know. And then we, and I guess Dad was last of all to go in the water. Same water. No, that bathing was a problem on the farm.
How would you heat the water for your bath?
Oh, they did. They had this big, there was 2 tubs. I think they held 10 gallons each. They put them on the cook stove. There was enough room for 2. And then the cook stove had a little reservoir on the end. I think that held about 10, 12 gallons. So that's where the water came from. After us poor kids hauled it up here in the cream can.
How often did you take a bath?
Oh, as usually that was Saturday nights. Of course, I suppose it should have said whenever I needed one, but I didn't need one very often. That's not true, but you know, usually once a week.
Who did most of the cooking for your family?
No, my mother, and then of course I had 3 older sisters. That, like, you know, kids, we weren't allowed to get near the stove, or boys weren't supposed to be in the kitchen in them days. Now it's just turned around. See, a lot of them guys nowadays, if they wouldn't learn how to cook, they get nothing to eat. The girls don't care to cook very much anymore. Am I right about that? Not all girls. There's some that like to cook.
What types of meals would your mom prepare?
Oh boy, like we'd have dough food, oh, maybe twice a week. And then oftentimes they'd have soup, you know, a big bowl of soup. They'd set that, kettle I should say, not a bowl, kettle. Set it on the middle of the table, and then you helped yourself. You dish it into your bowl, soup bowl. Well, for a big family, I guess that was about the easiest to do. And they had pancakes quite often. So, oh yeah, we ate okay.
What were some of your favorite dishes?
Well, you know, I like cheese buttons and dumplings. That's but then I also liked homemade sausage, smoked. I didn't care for liver sausage. I know sometimes we'd get hungry later before I went to bed, and then they'd always tell me, well, you should have ate at the table at mealtime. Well, when you had liver sausage and so, I didn't like to eat that stuff. So, but you'd find, usually they'd give in, and we'd get a cookie before we go to bed.
Were there any other meals besides liver sausage that you disliked?
I didn't like sauerkraut. I do now, but I didn't like sauerkraut then at all. Let's see, can't think of anything that, I'm easy to please, so I eat just about anything. I guess that's the way we were brought up.
Do you remember how your mother made her sauerkraut?
No, they put it in they made it in a barrel. I think it was a 15-gallon barrel or something. You know, I don't know what they put in there.
What other traditional German dishes did they make besides cheese buttons?
Oh, let's see. There was borscht, soup, you know, and what else? Oh gosh. They must have had some other things. I can't even think of them right offhand, because there was quite a variety. I like donuts too, when they made donuts. I still like them today, I guess.
Where did your family eat their meals?
Pardon?
Where did your family eat their meals?
Eat the donuts.
Just any of your meals. Where did you eat them?
You mean when we ate them? Or?
Where did your family eat?
Oh, yeah. They had a downstairs, you know, in the kitchen. There'd be a bench along the wall. I think 4 of them sat on the bench, and then of course Dad would sit at the head of the table, and then we'd sit around with chairs. Yeah, that's quite a bunch when you have 11 of them at a table. The guy sitting on the end had a hurry, so he didn't get shortchanged.
Did you have a specific seating arrangement?
Oh yeah, we always had, of course, prayer first, and of course Dad would be the first one to start things out. Then on Sunday morning he always read some scripture, and sometimes he'd keep on, and then Mom would poke him on the shoulder and say, hey, you know, we gotta go to church yet today too. And
Do you remember what the prayer was that you said?
The prayer at the meal.
Yeah.
Let's see. Well, no, I got to think of that now. Oh, it was German. No, I don't even know how that went anymore. Gee, I guess I'm getting old, forgetful. Liebe Father, I don't know how that went no more. I'm sorry, don't know how that went no more.
No problem. Did you have any rules at the table?
Oh yeah, the radio had to be off, and no talking. You had to, or when you spilled something, of course, then you got heck. And with that many arms reaching for things, that happened every once in a while.
You've mentioned canning a couple of times. Where did your mother do her canning?
Well, that was also downstairs in the basement, yeah. You know, they did a lot of canning, and then they had a screen door with flaps on it because flies seemed to smell that, I guess, or something. They were always on the door when they were canning. Oh yeah, they canned just about everything, even meat they canned. That was all summer long.
Do you remember how your mother
Hmm.
canned?
They'd put it in a char, and then they'd put that char in a bigger kettle, and it would cook it. Oh, I don't know how long, but and then later on they'd check the seals were good, put it in the cellar. Yeah. Sounds like work, doesn't it?
Where was the cellar?
Oh, let's see, pretty much where you're standing right now. Right down there, yeah.
And where did your family do their butchering?
Pardon?
Where did your family do their butchering?
I still didn't understand.
Where did your family do their butchering?
Oh, yeah, that was usually done in the barn. Yeah. Yeah, that was an all-day chore too. They usually had 1 beef and 2 hogs or 3 hogs, yeah.
Could you describe a typical butchering day for us?
No. I know we'd catch the hog, and them days they didn't. I never shot it. Catch the hog, and then they'd stick a knife in his throat, cut his throat. Kind of brutal, but that's the way it was done. And then they'd scald it, you know, in hot water, and then you'd wait a minute. They'd hang him up on looked like a single tree on a evener, you know, hang it up and gut it and cut it, and yeah, and then take it over in the house. Did the finish in the basement. The sausage is made in the basement and things like that.
Was there usually more than one family butchering, or was it just your family?
No, well, we'd have, later on, I know when my oldest brother was married, they'd come over and help. And then we'd go back and help them. Otherwise, no, we didn't have nobody. Too many kids around, I guess.
And do you remember how the actual sausage was made?
I remember helping turning that. They turned it by hand, you know, when they filled the casings. I helped turn that grinder or what it was, but I don't know. I remember one time they ordered the sausage mix from Gurney's in Yankton, South Dakota, and it had so much sage in it, we didn't like it. So after that, they made their own, did their own seasoning.
When did you get electricity at this house?
When we got electricity? Well, first we had a 6-volt, it's just a battery for radio and one light, I guess. Then later on we got a 32-volt. Then I had your washing machine and a refrigerator, all that. But power, we got power in 52, I think it was, 1952. That was a long time coming. That was quite the deal, though. That, like in Lair, the hardware stores, he was selling refrigerators and freezers, and oh yes, that was a boom. But it was worth it. Of course, then I think the light bill, what was it? It started at $4 and some cents, I think, or was that the telephone? I'm not even sure. But now, gee, we got a service charge of $25 a month already. Just, yeah.
Speaking of the telephone, when did you get a telephone?
Telephone. They had a rural telephone here before, just the neighbors. I don't remember much of that. I know I wasn't allowed to use it. But telephone, though, I don't even remember when we got that telephone. That was another thing. That was $4.25, but it was a party line. And then later on, we got underground. We had a lot of problems with sleet. One year, I think it went down twice, a sleet storm. That was a big expense. Of course, the guy, it was out of Ellendale, Dickie Rural, we were with. Now it's Beck. But he said at that time that it was outdated already when they built it here, the telephone.
You've mentioned the radio a couple times. How often would you listen to the radio?
Oh yeah, the radio, of course, they didn't want that on, the folks. You were supposed to save electricity. Then later on it got better. I know they used to, like my mother used to listen to Ma Perkins, the soap operas, you know. And we had the news. Then Amos and Andy we'd listen to. That was always in the evening. But you always went to bed fairly early, so it was used, but not much. Always were saving electricity.
You mentioned earlier that this lake wasn't always as high as it is now.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like down here when you were growing up?
Oh, there was buildings down there. Even I had buildings down there. That came out, I would say, 1,000 feet at least. Yeah,
And this is your barn over here?
yeah, barn was always there. That was built in 1919. And we added the sheds, I guess, on it, on each side, the wings on each side.
And who helped build the barn originally?
Widmer. He was from Fredonia. What the heck was it? I don't remember his first name now. Yeah, They had a lot of help here. The neighbors were building it. He was afraid to go up, they said, so he'd saw the things and hand everything up to them. But you know, filling hay, that was a chore. Like before bales, you'd pull it up, you know, with a sling and fill it, and then later on bales, yeah, you threw them up there and stacked them in there. And am I supposed to turn?
Yeah. What were some of the chores that you had to do in the barn?
Oh, well, when you had horses, you know, you had to groom the horses in the morning. You give them grain, and then take them down to the tank, give them water, bring them back in. Well, horses are a lot of work. If you liked horses, it wasn't bad though. And then of course you had your calves in there when you milked. You fed your calves too. And like I said once before, I had some hogs in there too, which I think the most we ever milked though was 20 cows. So he didn't milk more than about 5 cows each. And then you had your cream separator in there, which was turned by hand. Yeah. You know, you turn them, if you didn't turn fast enough, a bell would ring. So you kept going to keep that bell from ringing. Oh yeah. The cats would come in there, I remember they would try and lick some of the milk as it came out of the spout. All those good memories, huh?
Did you have a favorite chore that you had to do?
No, I don't. Maybe getting the cows was always interesting. You know, I got to tell you this. We had one cow. We'd put them in the barn and we'd spray them for flies and mosquitoes. And it was bovine oil. I think Standard Oil sold it. In them days, you couldn't get very much spray, different kinds. And this one cow, when we'd leave them out, we had a gate, a fence beyond the barn, and they always had to go through there. And this cow would go up to the gate. There was a gate where you closed it with a piece of chain and a handle on. You put it around the post and strip a wire over it. This cow would go there and rub on that wire and open up the gate. She'd do that every time. And then she'd back up and then they'd walk out. The educated cow. I'll never forget that. We'd let her do it too. It was interesting to watch her.
Did you have any least favorite chores that you had to do?
Well, if you had something like if you could ride someplace, like we used to ride and get the mail, I enjoyed that. And then later on, of course, when you could drive something, that took so long before we were able to drive anything in them days. Of course, you go back to the first rubber tire tractor was in 1940 or 41, Model A McCormick. We used that for mowing and raking. They were a handy little tractor at that time. But no cab and no radio. No hydraulic seat either.
How often would your mail come?
Well, you'd milk twice a day, you know, in the morning and the evening. Then earlier days, Dad would get the cows in the morning. He'd get up and get them, and sometimes we'd oversleep, and he got all worked up about that. He'd come in the house and wake us up, you guys, you know, to get the milking done.
You said earlier that you had to drive to get your mail.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How often would your mail come?
Oh yeah, every day. Yeah, mail every day. When I was little, it was out on Highway 30. Now I don't remember much of that though. And then later on, they extended the route here, and they went up where church was there, where they still go today.
What types of things would you get in the mail?
Oh yeah, Dakota Farmer, and then there was the German paper, Staatsanzeiger, and then there was the Napoleon Homestead. That's the county paper. Still get it today. And there was the Dakota Farmer and Farmer. Yeah, there were 2 farm magazines. I don't know any other magazines we got. It must have been, oh, the girls liked true story magazines, but I guess they weren't allowed to have them here. They didn't come in the mail. They got them from the neighbors, I think.
Did your family speak German or English at home since you got the German newspaper?
No, we weren't allowed to talk English, and especially at the table, so I had to talk German.
Did you have any chicken coops or anything
Oh
like that?
yeah, that was Dad's chore. He always liked chickens. Yeah, we had a lot of chickens. Hen house, and that was his chore. He always took care of the chickens. He used to sell eggs in 30 dozen cases, a box. A lot of eggs in there. I don't know what they brought. I mean, maybe 8, 9 cents a dozen, perhaps. I'm not even sure. Or isn't very much.
Did you ever have to clean out the chicken coop?
Yeah, later on we did, yes, yes. That wasn't my favorite job either. Like they say, that went with the territory.
Did your chores change between summer and winter?
Well, yeah, I think you would say they changed some. Like you didn't use horses for only 2 a team, you know. The rest of the horses you didn't put in the barn. They had a shed outside where they'd go in. Yeah, it changed a little. It was, I think summertime was easier that way anyhow. You still did the milking. Of course, in the wintertime the cows stayed in.
In the summer, would you take your cows out to pasture?
Yeah, you'd leave them out. They'd go out. We didn't have to herd cows. That was one thing. Had a fence, so.
Did you ever ride your horses just for fun?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Yeah. Go ride, sometimes go to the neighbors with a horse. Or we used to hunt that way. We'd have a buggy and have a horse on it and hunt rabbits, you know, go drive along the field. You can usually see a rabbit in the snow where he was sitting, it would shine where he was. It was more white, I guess, than the dirty snow we had in them days.
Did you have a favorite horse?
Oh yeah, yeah. We had a Dolly and Reuben. You know, those were the chore horses that we used every day. And then there was Tootsie. We used to drive her to school all the time. It was a white horse, a nice horse.
Is there anything else that you'd like to add about doing chores or the barn?
No, I just can't think of anything. I suppose after you leave, I'll think of a bunch of things.